So Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins have released the first official images for Wonder Woman 2, and it gives us a lot of interesting information. And firstly, the big one. That is that Steve Trevor will be back. Patty Jenkins says, "Welcome to 1984, Steve Trevor." So how can Steve Trevor be back? After all, he died. And how can he look exactly the same age as when he died? Or did he die? How can he be back? Tell me before I lose my mind! Well, let's take a step back and look at the circumstances of his so-called death. So here we see him ready to fire a bullet at the bomb, and we see the explosion, but we don't know if Steve Trevor found another way to destroy the plane. It's also possible that some of the energy being released when Ares and Wonder Woman were battling may have found its way to the plane, and when the explosion went off, that the energy propelled Steve Trevor somewhere else. Now, if the energy of the explosion and the energy that was given off of the battle between Ares and Wonder Woman transported Steve Trevor somewhere, perhaps it transported him forward in time to 1984, and that would explain why Steve Trevor looks exactly the same age. Perhaps the energy from Ares battling Wonder Woman and the explosion sent Steve Trevor through some kind of a bend in time and space, and as we know, time is relative. It may have felt like an instant to Steve Trevor, but for Wonder Woman and for all of us, many years may have passed. And I think that perhaps Steve Trevor has been transported through a bend in space and time that was created from the energy of the battle and the explosion. And perhaps that Steve Trevor has been propelled forward in time to 1984. We have also assumed that because Wonder Woman is going to be set in 1984, that the events of this movie take place before the events of Justice League in the timeline.
I think that was beautiful.
However, I don't think this is the case. Even though this movie takes place in 1984, perhaps this is where Steve Trevor was transported, and Diana has to go back in time to 1984. Diana was clearly still very upset about Steve Trevor's death in the events of Justice League, and even gave Bruce Wayne a love tap.
Steve Trevor tell you that?
And if this theory is correct, it would also maintain the continuity that she had stepped away from doing anything for the last 100 years and has been mourning Steve Trevor. That's because the events that are happening in Wonder Woman 2 are actually happening after the events of Justice League in 2017. And I think another clue that perhaps foreshadowed this whole time travel storyline is the watch that Steve Trevor gives Wonder Woman before his sacrifice.
I wish we had more time. I love you.
So the events of Wonder Woman 2 will take place after the events of Justice League from Wonder Woman's perspective. She would have lived through 1984 once before without seeing Steve Trevor. However, because of the delay in Steve Trevor popping up in 1984, she would have already gone through 1984 without seeing him, and she will then have to jump back in time to 1984 to see him again. So how will Wonder Woman find out that Steve Trevor is in 1984, and how will she get back to 1984? There is of course precedent in the comics. In 1969, Ares invaded THEMYSCIRA to obtain the secret of interdimensional travel as well as time travel, which was entrusted to Hippolyta from Zeus. This storyline sees Wonder Woman travel back in time to Camelot and enlist the help of King Arthur. So another couple theories as to how Steve Trevor could be back could be because of just straight up magic. After all, this is a Wonder Woman movie and she is a demigod. And of course there are also lots of mystical, powerful things in THEMYSCIRA. And could this fountain that regenerated Steve Trevor in the first film possibly be some kind of a fountain of youth? And how incredible would it be if it's a Lazarus pit? But I think it's most likely that Steve Trevor was transported away from 1918 to 1984 with all the energy that was released at the end of Wonder Woman. The other bit of information was the picture which Gal Gadot released, and it has a couple interesting Easter eggs that I could pick up. They're basically a couple pictures from pop culture. This man over here is J.R. Ewing, and he was the big villain of a popular TV drama called Dallas, which ran from 1978 until 1991. And the other picture we could recognize is this girl who Chevy Chase's character flirts with in 1983's National Lampoon's Vacation. So it fits in with the whole 80s vibe. So what do you think of this theory? Do you think it's complete nonsense, or do you think there's a chance some of it may be true? I also want to hear all of your theories in the comments below. Let's have a friendly debate. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it and then share it. And please subscribe to Crafty Media and enable notifications to make sure that you don't miss out on any new content. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers for now.
I honestly didn't hear anything after "we're all gonna die."